Hi folks, welcome to the channel today. We're going to do a review on the Scram 411, and I want to do a brief introduction here so you know what the video is about and what you're going to see. So I've owned this bike now for about a month. Again, I purchased this bike. This is mine. This was not given to me or loaned by Royal Enfield or anybody, so I'm giving you a completely unbiased opinion. Not getting money for anybody or anything like that. I was dissatisfied with some of the other videos out there, so took it upon myself to do this little series here because the other videos weren't answering some of the questions that I had, and I was thinking that probably there were others out there with the same dilemma. So I'm going to take you on a ride on this bike today and talk about it while we're riding. And there's going to be the first segment's about the highway. What's it like to ride on a highway? That's the big question everybody seems to have on this bike. Is it okay on the highway? Is it going to be annoying? Is it going to be too slow? All that stuff. So we talk about that. Then I get it up to a nice area of state park here in Pennsylvania. We go on some gravel roads, and then I found a fairly rough forest road that we got to test out the suspension and how it handles all that. And I think you'll be interested to see that. The video, probably because we're going through the trees and there's a lot of shade and sunspots on the road, you probably can't tell how rough the road is, and it may look like I'm being a bit of a wuss, but I assure you that the surface was very rough, very rocky, very bumpy for here in the east. So again, it's not going to be Colorado mountains, but it's going to give you an idea of what it's like to ride on that kind of terrain. Then when we complete that, we go on a couple twisty back roads, nothing too sporty, but at least we can talk about what it's like there, and then I give the final thoughts on this thing. Overall, spoiler alert, I generally like this bike very much. Coming away from it kind of impressed instead of the Tiger that I had before over my shoulder there. You can see a picture of it. So the video is a little longer maybe than I'd like it to be, but I think there's a lot of useful commentary and information here. Would love to hear comments. If there's something that I didn't cover or you didn't see, please let me know, because I want to try to be as comprehensive on this bike and this series as I can. So without further ado, we're going to get into the video. I hope you enjoy it. Let me know what you think. All right, first time on the highway. Let's talk about it. Doing about 67 miles an hour indicated, and it seems to be pretty happy rolling along at this speed. It's not strained at all. We're creeping up to 70 now. Just a gentle roll on. Near wide open throttle. It does require, say maybe we're at about half throttle here, doing 70. Not really a problem. Buzz in the seat, little buzz in the pegs, holding a steady 70. I'm not going to go for a top speed run at this point, and we're still in the break-in period, only have 573 miles showing. But this is doable. It doesn't feel like it's stressed. Amount of wind blast, although I can't say it's worse than my Bonneville. Actually, I think it's better. Getting it right in the middle of my chest. And we are going to try the windshield here coming up soon. But yeah, here in the flat 70s, no problem. So coming off of a Tiger 800 that was mostly happy at 75 to 80, this is a little bit different. But it's not a negative thing, I wouldn't say. I'm not annoyed by the fact I'm only doing 70. It's acceptable for what the bike is. This is the big question that everybody seems to have is, what does the Himalayan and the Scram do on the highway? Are they something that you can ride and not be annoyed with it? I got to give it a little bit more gas here to get up this hill. Still not at a wide open throttle. Doing really good. This is a pretty good grade coming up here. Holding 70, no problem. So this is my first time riding it on the highway. I'm not going to pretend to be giving a definitive answer at this point, but I got some miles to do on the highway today to get to the rest of what I want to ride. And provided you don't want to get there fast, it's comfortable. You don't feel like you're fighting the bike to do 65, 70 miles an hour, certainly. Would I want to do this for hours on end? No. This bike is not made for that. If you're going to be traveling long highway distances frequently, then I would say probably not. Now, can you do it? Of course you can. You can do it on any motorcycle if you're willing to tolerate the negatives. Those guys that are riding, trail 125s on the highway to get to where they're going to go. But, yeah, 7-8 hours in the saddle at this speed and this bike, no. Again, not what it's made for. But will it be able to get you to the interesting spaces to ride that it's more suited for without you hating it? I would say yes. Alright, one observation I can make. I love this Delcovic exhaust. It makes great sounds. I like all the burbles and pops on the D-cell. But I'll tell you that on the highway, you're going to get tired of it very quickly. At a constant 65 mile an hour drone, it becomes tiring pretty quickly. Just be aware of that if you're thinking about adding a custom exhaust to your bike. That's going to make a difference. And I'm wearing earplugs today, and I still can detect that it's going to be an annoyance over a long haul. Alright, so this is a pretty typical state forest road here in Pennsylvania. This is about 35 to 40 miles an hour. And this is kind of where this bike is going to shine. That suspension that seemed a little stiff on the road, it's actually really nice and supple here without being too plungy. Standing up's not bad. Like I said before, I think these handlebars are maybe a half an inch to an inch higher. I think they'd be much better for this, but it's certainly not difficult. So this is a drivable trail. Let's see how this does. Should be slightly rougher. See what kind of shape this road's in. Just how much scrambling can the Scram do? Well, that was unexpected. here's the difference between a more road-oriented bike and a true dirt bike. They can just dance right over all this stuff. Barely feel it. Popular trail. Some loose rocks here. Second gear. And really, handling it just perfectly fine. My suspicions are pretty correct that the Scram is just a Himalayan with a few deducted features. So anything of this nature that you would do with your regular Himalayan can certainly be attacked with the Scram. Very rocky through here. Second gear. Very low RPM, doesn't care. Completely unfazed. I'm sure the camera's not picking this up, but it's very stony. A lot of loose crap here. Just using the back brake. Not having any problems at all with the ABS being turned on. So you can't turn it off on this bike. Really, I'm relying on engine braking most of the time. Still, second gear. This would be so much more work in my full-size adventure bike that I had. So much more weight to manage. Less tractable engine. This engine is really perfect for this. There we go. Oh yeah, I think I hit every one of those rocks. "15 miles an hour, second gear." To go to first for this. in the twisties? Well, I'm still getting adapted to the bike. I'm not completely convinced on these tires, so I'm a little cautious as to really to lean it over into a turn really far. But as far as the handling goes, as I noted in the earlier videos, pretty good. Big hill we're going up here. 55 in fourth gear. Shift to fifth. A little boggy. Probably have to go down to fourth again. Yeah, we're losing speed here. Fourth gear's no problem. I would almost treat fifth like an overdrive gear, because any kind of, you know, major incline, it's gonna not want to make it. Fourth gear though, you can usually roll on the throttle. I was down to almost 45, just twisted the throttle a little bit. Now I'm back up to 50, and it's still climbing, so we're good. But big hill here. And one of my fears about the bike was that it wasn't going to be able to handle these big hills. I was going to be shifted down into third gear or something just to get up these things. And it's really not the case. Unless you've slowed down too much and bogged it, you don't have to shift down to third. Fourth is fine. Speed limit's 45, we're doing 50. Don't tell anybody. But she's working, you know, you can tell it's got to put forth a little effort. And the thing that I have to keep reminding myself, and probably you viewers, it's a 411cc bike for one, and of that displacement, it's only got 24 horsepower. So it doesn't have a lot of oomph. But does it have enough oomph? I argue yes, it does. Not to go fast, but to accomplish the task at hand, certainly. Again, still climbing here. Very big hill. This is going up and over a mountain. Just maintaining its speed, 45 to 50. Levels out up to 55, and we can shift into fifth gear. So overall, what do we think? Was this a smart purchase decision? Or did I screw myself by selling a Tiger 800 and going for this? Alright. We're going to forget about what Royal Enfield wants this bike to be. Their idea of an urban scrambler. Like I said, I don't know what the hell that even is. To me, a scrambler is a road bike that's above average capable of moving to a dirt road and being able to handle it. This bike certainly does that. And that's what I had intended it to be when I purchased it. So in that regard, very happy. It has just enough off-road prowess and capability to satisfy me, who's a low-level adventurer, let's face it. Twisty roads. You know, it's not as sporty as my Tiger was. I'm not going to lie. But the Tiger also had more road-oriented tires, better brakes. But as you can see here, we have no problem at all carving corners with this thing. And as I become more comfortable with it and gain a little bit more trust maybe in these C-odd tires, I'll be able to push it a little bit harder. So there's not really disappointment there. I'm always going to wish it had a little bit more power, but the power that it does have, I think is good. I like the lower end torque, mentioned that many times. It doesn't really rev out and give you a lot high up. It's not that kind of bike. If you're looking for that, look elsewhere. You're not going to be happy. But if you like the idea of a bike that puts around, but isn't a 50cc slug, then you're probably going to be happy with this. Nice thing, of course, being that Royal Enfield dealers generally will give you test rides. So you have to get yourself on one of these bikes to find out what it's really like. Even on a short test ride, you're at least going to be able to determine the type of power and acceleration that you're going to have. It is acceptable. I wouldn't rate it any more than that. And it also depends on what your idea of acceptable is. But for myself, I'm okay with it. Nice collection there, and the world's rustiest Jeep right there. Alright, what about around town? Well, I've driven in my local area, in town and stuff, and no complaints whatsoever. It's a great bike for that. Certainly can keep up with the town traffic, can carve between little things that you need to get around. You know, it's perfect for that. No gripes there. But if that's all you're looking for, unless you're in love with the look of the Scrambler, you're probably better off getting a Hunter 350 or a Classic or something like that if you're looking at Royal Enfields, because those bikes are perfect for inner city use. Not that this one isn't, but they're a little bit lighter and carry their weight a little bit lower. It's going to be a little bit easier to manage maybe than this. Also not as tall to get it on and off of like this one is. The big question, of course, for everyone seems to be, what's it like on the highway? And I think we covered that. It'll do a 65 comfortably. It's happy there. It seems to be right on its cam, right on the RPM range that it likes. 70, still pretty happy, but starting to get maybe a little annoyed. Above 70, which I really haven't gone, but in a very short spurt here or two, usually just running down a hill, I got it up to 75, and it does start to sound like it's working at that speed. And then beyond that, you're pushing. And it's going to take you a long time to get to those speeds. It's not going to accelerate up to that 75, 80 mile an hour mark very rapidly. And the dirt. I mean, I couldn't have been more pleased with how it performed on that road today. Very rough, very bumpy. Certainly not challenging single track or anything like some of you may be wanting to ride on. But again, not what this bike is for. Now, could you tour on this bike? Sure you could. Solo, I think, would be the only way I'd do it. I wouldn't want to go too up on this. I think it's asking too much of this bike to carry another person plus all your luggage and junk. If this bike had a 6th gear, could it go faster on the highway? Possibly. I know we're living in fantasy land dreaming about that 6th gear, but I kind of think they may have missed an opportunity there to make this bike a little bit more well-rounded. But if you don't go over 70 to 75, who cares? And that's one of the things with speed in these bikes, is that the Tiger and my V-Strom were both bikes that had good power. And they were geared in such a way that they were happiest, at least the Tiger. I don't remember the V-Strom specifically anymore. But the Tiger wanted to go 80 most of the time. No, not on these back roads. On a road like this, it would want to do 60, which is fine. But on the highway, when you were in top gear, it was pretty happy running along at 80 miles an hour. When you have a bike like the Scram, it changes your speeds and the comfort of those speeds. So if you find yourself riding too fast, getting in trouble with law enforcement, or just cooking it into turns a little too hot, yes, it's you as a rider, but the bike is also kind of encouraging you to do that. With a bike like this, it brings you back a little bit, reels you in, and it's still enjoyable. And one of the things that, of course, they always say is it's more fun to ride a slow bike fast than a fast bike slow. That's very true. This is not what I would call a slow motorcycle. It has enough power to get things done, and for most people, not annoy you in the process. But you can wail on this thing and only barely be breaking the law in a lot of instances. So it's a side benefit to going to a bike like this. Now I'm coming to this bike from a bigger, more powerful, heavier machine. A lot of you are either buying this for your first bike or maybe moving up from something else, or doing a lateral move for another bike that doesn't really do what you want it to do. But if you're a person like me that's tired of muscling a big bike around, want something easier to manage, maybe even a little bit better on gas, a little simpler maintenance, that sort of thing. Bikes like this, and I'm not going to sell you just on a Himalayan or a Scram, but bikes like this have a lot to offer, and you really should consider giving them a shot. So overall, am I happy going from the bigger bike to this? I would say at this point, I'm probably 90% happy with the purchase. There are things that I will admit I miss, but I don't think the bike that I had possessed enough of those things that I missed that bike. And here she is back home again, a slightly dusty and dirty Scram 411. And just going to close out this video with a couple of notes. One is, you'll notice that I stuck a beaded seat cover on there because after 200 miles, or about 150, I couldn't tolerate the seat anymore. I had brought that along to do an experiment with, and we'll have a separate video about seat covers. I have a couple I want to try out and report on. But the one other thing I wanted to mention on this bike was this tail tidy that the previous owner had done. I pointed out before, and as you can see, the license plate got bent, and this whole thing was wrapped back under here. Apparently, doing the off-road portion, we took the suspension and bottomed it so far that it caught the tag and tried to suck it up underneath. So that doesn't work. I'm going to take that off today and reinstall the original rear fender extension, which I do have. But that was the only issue I had. Well, there's one other one. I did notice that the clutch seems like it's engaging at the very end of the lever travel, so I'm going to have to try to adjust that, see if we can make that work a little bit better, because it's almost to the point where it seems like it'll be on the verge of wanting to start to slip. So we don't want that. Don't want to burn up a clutch. So I'm going to adjust that and put that original fender back on the back and maybe even give it a bath. So I hope this video was helpful. It was a little time in coming, but I wanted to get some miles on this thing before I gave a final assessment of it. But that is my review of the Scram 411. I am going to be doing more videos on this. This will go on a tour or two and see some more off-road duty and all kinds of other things. So if you want to follow along with my experience owning this thing, go ahead and subscribe to the channel now. We do all kinds of things with different Royal Enfields and automobiles and even the occasional model car kit build. So as you can see, we've got other Enfields in the garage, and there's more bikes even than these two. So I thank you for watching and hope you enjoyed the ride, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. If you have any questions on the Scram, hit me up in the comments section below. I'll be happy to answer. Talk to you soon.